Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. I was horrified when I recognized my daughter on the other end of the suicide hotline. I rolled my eyes as she ranted, lying about my parenting style, deciding to punish her later for everything she said about me. The only thing I ever wanted was just to fit in with them and be part of their world. Sadly, the moment I tried to join in, they all screamed and shoved the Ouija board to the floor. When my son came out of the closet, he was beaten so bad that he needed multiple surgeries to recover. If only I had remembered to lock the front door, he wouldn't have managed to escape. A single tear ran down my cheek as my son finally said his first word, with the cutest little smile on his face. I wrapped my hands around his throat as he repeatedly called out "Mama," as I knew it meant he loved his bitch of a mother more than he loved me. We managed to slow down the zombie apocalypse as we convinced them to eat animals instead of humans. We have now been forced to resort to cannibalism to survive, as they have wiped out almost every other animal on the planet. I swore I could hear a woman screaming, crying for help. But I was tired and had too much on my plate, so I closed the window, figuring someone else would help her. It's not uncommon to wake up with a witch sitting on your chest when you have sleep paralysis. It is uncommon to wake up and see a witch sitting on your wife's chest when she has sleep paralysis. My heart leapt as I saw the test results the gynecologist handed me. The green mark against genetic qualified meant that my daughter would continue my legacy to serve the country as a birth giver. Women are required to take pregnancy tests prior to leaving and upon returning to the state. I was quickly handcuffed and led away when the second test was negative. Any H2 molecules that come into contact with this chemical will break down and reform into self-replicating petroleum compound. Now, gentlemen, I'm sure you agree that there are many useful applications of such chemical, but personally, I much rather just dump a bunch of it in the ocean and see what happens, wouldn't you? In the darkness of an abandoned basement sat a rotting corpse. But when it got hungry, it stood up. My father was arrested when one of my teachers at my school discovered bruises on me. Now that I have my own children, I exclusively use psychological torment. Searching through the wreckage of another ruined city, I finally got lucky when I found mounds of enough warm white rice to starve off starvation for another day. Shoving a handful into my mouth, I felt the little grains wither and squirm against my tongue, but I told myself it was just my imagination as I swallowed hard and took another bite. Go home and get some rest, I told my team. It's nearly midnight, and you'll be no good to those trapped miners if you're working on fumes. The rep from the Army Corps of Engineers has assured me they had enough oxygen to last up to, 200 hours, over 8 days, and it's not like they would starve before morning. I think my husband's making me sick. Knowing the fridge has been on the fritz, I probably should have thrown the rest of him away. In lieu of the death penalty, I was to be sentenced to an experimental drug trial, through which I would be subjected to 1 hour of eternity. I have spent the last 10 billion years staring at the same 4 walls, begging for death, but unable to die, and my sentence has not even begun. I wish to extend my dog's life as long as I live. If I do that, your dog's life will get shorter, are you sure? The genie replied. I suddenly found myself in the bathroom with a cup of water in my hand. I had struck my leg on a drawer that I had left open, causing me to wake up. Sorry we woke you. We were thirsty and that drawer is usually closed. A small spider sitting on my cheek said to me before disappearing into my ear canal. When my friend suggested we do the ice bath challenge for content, I was all for it. She didn't tell me about the salt. I'm a male nurse, and after leaving work, I always call my wife to make sure she's safe because of the recent reports of a killer on the loose. I called her after getting into my car, and she answered, but I thought I could hear the faint, distant sound of a guy screaming for help in the background, and my wife assured me that it was just the TV. The zombie apocalypse ended decades after it began, society creating a cure. Until the people emerging from the bunkers, their bodies containing the original strain. My sister threw a hissy fit when she discovered what I was planning on naming my son, as she claimed she was planning to use that name for one of her future children. My sister awoke soaked in blood and screaming her head off, as I confronted her by pointing out that she needn't worry about any future children, as I was kind enough to give her a hysterectomy. My husband told me he'd never give me up. But as the kidnapper held me and my son on separate chains above lava, he made his choice to let her down and save my son. The detective winced as he illuminated the body by the record player, a strangely disemboweled thing with the words, If you listen, it grows inside you, written in blood on the wall beside it. After his third day of listening to the record's nominal groans in search of clues, the detective's wife came into the room, draping her arms over him, and said, "Looks like all that trying paid off. I'm pregnant." It has been 6 years and 364 days. Tomorrow I'll finally be free from the horrors that broken mirror brought me. All the women in my family die at the age of 24. And as I begged my mother-in-law to drive me to the hospital 2 hours before my 24th birthday, she denied and insists that I'm overreacting. We are having a natural birth at home. I invented a time machine so I can go back in time to change my husband's mind about suicide. When I arrived back in the present, I smiled while reading his obituary, knowing he wouldn't live on to kill all those innocent people. After an hour-long conversation, the psychologist told me that she still didn't believe in ghosts, and it was time for her to have lunch with her son. First, I didn't want to traumatize her, but seeing no other option, I took her to the next room where her son had killed her earlier. My daughter's eyes lit up when I woke her for her birthday. She began screaming and pleading with me to stop as the light bulbs I had placed in her empty eye sockets began burning the inside of her skull. My favorite comic book, my favorite necklace, the puppy I rescued, my favorite toy, and that's my best friend, my wife said with a smile. With childlike enthusiasm, my wife explained what everything was after we dug up her time capsule. "You're not taking my baby from me!" I screamed at the nurses. "I gave birth to a beautiful little angel, and he disappears in my arms every time I take those pills." I was on cloud nine when my ex-girlfriend cuddled up against me and told me how much she loved me. I was worried that she would soon discover the stitches and find out that I was wearing her husband's skin, but hoped by that point she would have fallen in love with my personality. I don't believe in ghosts either, I told my new midwife as I laid in bed feeling my little one kicking inside me. I enjoyed talking to my midwife until she turned around to get her purse, revealing that her entire back of her skull was missing. When I gained possession of my own voodoo doll, I always kept it locked in my house safe just in case. Even though I was 500 miles away at the time, the sudden agony of my skin inexplicably blackening and bubbling meant I was the first to know about the blaze tearing through my house. I wished for her to fall in love with me, I said to the djinn. But why did you give me all those things I didn't wish for? Those were just to get you hooked, because anything you wish for will cost you. Ever since the superhero had started protecting our city, 99% of women feel safe and secure. The remaining 1% are those women who he takes with him as payment. I always suspected that one of my children would end up killing me after a psychic told me that I would die by my own blood. I finally understood what she had actually meant as I lay unable to move at the bottom of a ravine with blood pooling in my throat. All those innocent men, women, and children. What have they done to deserve such a horrible death? The prisoner asked, strapped to the bomb. Finger on the trigger of the remote in hand, the man replied, "I stopped believing in you, my God." Once the anesthetic kicks in, you won't feel a thing when we remove your parasitic twin. That's the last thing I heard the surgeons say to my brother before they sliced me apart. I always snort with laughter whenever people mentioned a sleep paralysis demon, as I had suffered from the condition for years with no ill effects. I couldn't even open my mouth to scream as the flames consumed my bedding, and I could feel the anguishing pain as my organs cooked inside my body. Locked inside the box, I screamed as loud as I could, but my brother couldn't hear anything. After a while, my brother unlocked the box and we decided to buy it along with some rope. Dear valid user, we are writing to inform you of a recent data breach resulting in the potential loss of your personal information, including but not limited to name, address, contacts, credit account, DNA profile, PI chip access. Due to the recent increase in identify replacement incidences, we recommend all users report to the nearest citizen centers for immediate revalidation and processing within 30 minutes to prevent account terminated. Internment officers dispatched. Please remain calm. Adam and Eva knew that they would have to answer for their attempts at overthrowing the tyrannical Supreme Council. For your crimes against the holy harmony of the cosmos, we sentence you to live 1 trillion lifetimes on the prison planet of Earth. I'm sorry, but your wife was killed by your infant after childbirth, the doctor relayed with a nervous expression. After childbirth? Isn't it usually during childbirth? I sat in the hospital and tried to focus on the rhythmic beating of my infant son's heart as I ignored my mother's ranting about government conspiracies. But when I came back later, I heard only silence as our mother smiled and said she unplugged some things to prevent the 5G radiation from spreading. We don't care about your reptiles, Mr. Doolittle. Tell us about the higher apes. You do not understand. the doctor replied. The crocodiles say the signs are the same and another one is coming. As I finished the 5th book in the series about monsters secretly living among humans, I looked over to the young man shivering and chained up in the corner. You're going to tell me exactly how you know about our world, Mr. Author, or I will take each of those precious little fingers you used to write, I told him, giving him a wide smile that showed my mouth full of fangs. It's hard posting something that doesn't break any of the rules. The demon torturing me doesn't care how hard it is, only that I do it. I decided to expose my husband to my friends and family by projecting the secret camera recordings of him abusing me on the blank wall behind him. Though they were at first shocked by the interruption of his sermon, I was not prepared for the whole congregation to erupt into laughter and cheers. I remember the day that the immortality elixir was invented. They practically gave it away. Now that I sit here on the street, my body is filled with agony at the age of 187. I pray one day I'll have enough money to buy my death. My heart broke as my stepdaughter screamed that I wasn't her real father before she stormed out of the house. I ignored her muffled cries while shoveling more dirt on top of the coffin as I reunited the ungrateful bitch with her beloved father. My ex has a profile on one of those judgment-free kink apps where people talk about meeting up to roleplay being forced. But she doesn't know about it. For her surprise birthday party, my psychic friend was going to lure my mother to the basement, where the guests were hiding, with a made-up story about sensing a body being buried down there. After a few moments of silence, we heard my mother shout, "You'll never find the other one," followed by the sound of a gunshot. As soon as the priest limped out of the room, the woman accosted him and demanded, "So, did you get out of him?" He looked sorrowfully at the purpling bruises on her face before replying, "I'm so sorry, but I couldn't find no demons in your husband." After several of our female test subjects began showing signs of pregnancy, we launched an investigation. While we already suspected one of our male scientists of having intercourse with them, we were really more interested in understanding what procedures he implemented in order to get the corpses to carry. They said this machine can allow you to swap minds with anything, so I tried it with my pet hamster. As the agonizing pain kicked in, I finally understood why it was always trying to kill itself. And the triangle goes in the green hole. Good job, Eva, said Amy with a proud pat on the back. Turning to the colonel, Amy continued, 3 minutes into training, the model has a 2-year-old spectral ability. In 2 hours, this entire floor of Eva's could be mission capable. I swear I can feel eyes staring at me every time I go into my basement. I really have to make sure the blindfolds sit properly the next time. Despite the fortune teller's over-dramatic warning to beware the leopard's dark jaws, you were not afraid, as you had no plans to go to Africa. Years later, on a research expedition driving the frigid, crystalline Antarctic Sea, you could not notice the hungry, gaping shadow rocketing towards you from the dark waters beneath your feet. I struggled to fall back asleep in the car because my mom was swerving all over the place. I looked out the window to see the commotion and noticed that all the cars were going in the opposite direction. I always heard that your hair sticking up on the back of your neck was your body's way of warning you that you were in danger. I gazed around me in a panic while the primordial part of my brain screamed at me to run, as every hair on my body suddenly withdrew back inside my skin. After months of captivity, I escaped the basement and ran down the road begging the nearest person for help. I turned, crying, and ran the other way when she dropped her phone, pointed at me, and started screaming. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. As always, I'd like to thank all the writers who let me read all these two-sentence horrors tonight. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, share, and comment. And if you're interested in more long-form content like this, check out 2482 Reads as well. The link will be down below for you guys. But as always, thank you for watching and listening. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.